On this episode, we discuss Last Christmas.
Based on a true story. If by true story you mean some of the lyrics of a George Michael song.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Flophouse. I'm Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin. And look who's here joining us.
Look.
Hi, I'm Hallie Hacklin.
That's right, everybody. It's you know her from The Daily Show. You may know her from White Snacks Problem Areas. You may know her for being my office mate for 4 years. Or you probably know her best as the star of the Flophouse, Hallie Hagland.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of people paid to have digital fans entered into the background to celebrate. I like that, Hallie, you are such a popular guest that we don't even introduce you. We let you introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, me too.
Now, Hallie,
Yeah.
you know, it's no secret that you've had a problem with some of the other movies sometimes that we've made you watch for the podcast. Not so much the horror movies, but a lot of the more fantasy oriented sort of the bullshit
for those who can't watch,
movies,
Hallie was giving a thumbs down. That was a thumbs down movement from Hallie.
So,
They were just boring. Like,
Yeah.
that's the problem. It's like they weren't even fun bad. They were just long and boring.
Well, which movies did we watch with? Did we have with you before? I've forgotten. Do you remember?
one of them was The Dark
Something
Tower.
about...
Oh,
Was
right.
that... Yeah,
Dark
that was
Tower.
definitely the worst.
Yeah.
That was where the Upside Down world, right?
That's a different
Oh, yeah,
one.
we
Really?
did that one. It
That
was
was
called
called
Upside Down.
I think.
That was called, yeah. Dark Tower is the one
Oh,
where
that's a
Matthew
different
McConaughey was like, in my world, we don't have chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
no.
was bad, too.
No, I think
Oh,
it's-
didn't we do?
Actually, I don't even remember that one.
Didn't we do one of the 50 Shades movies?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like my favorite of the ones we watched was the Zac Efron one.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one where I wasn't on the episode, so that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
She had a great time.
that
It was
makes
so
no
fun.
sense.
It was so fun.
I mean, I
What a
like,
great
I
time
like
we all had
super
together.
hot guys like Zac Efron, too. I don't know why I wouldn't be included.
Now,
Yeah.
listeners may not know, this is the first time we've had Hallie on the show since she moved to my hometown, Los Angeles. And let me just tell you, I was so excited when Hallie moved out there, and I was like, this is going to be great. We're going to hang out all the time. And then some dumb germ had to come in and ruin those plans. So,
I mean, Elliot, you are literally the only people that we ever socialized with in Los Angeles.
because you came over, you had moved in, what, like a couple days before or a week before when you came over?
Yeah, I think we had dinner at your house maybe a week after we moved in, and then LA shut down 2 weeks after we moved in.
Oh. Terrible. Well, you know what? It's just too bad our friendship is over now, and when we'll never
Wow.
have
What do you
dinner
guys?
again.
What do you guys do for dinner?
Yeah. Let's have a
Yeah, Elliot,
rundown.
what's
Do you have a
going on?
menu? Or
What do you guys do for dinner with Elliot and Danielle?
Danielle cooked a lovely feast. She cooked kebabs, I believe,
Yeah, yeah. It was,
with a garlicky hummus.
the hummus
wow.
was very garlicky. It was like it was a little too vinegary or garlicky, but you could
wow.
only have a little bit of it before your tongue jumped out of your
know.
mouth and said, "No more, please," and ran away.
Yeah,
I think you're
yeah,
speaking my
that
language.
ruined your. That ruined the game of spin the bottle that was supposed to finish the meal.
Well, it was gonna.
That we were about to play with our 3 children.
It was going to be one of those. We were like, we live in La La Land now. Time to put the kids to bed in one room. Don't lock the door so that they can walk out and find us playing kind of creepy, weird adult games that we're finding uncomfortable too, so that they can
Yeah.
write about it in their memoirs about growing up in that crazy Holly weird culture. But the garlic, yeah, it really put a damper on it.
Elliot just has like an empty goldfish bowl at the entrance to his house where you just drop your keys when you go in. And that's how key parties work, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
thank
I've
God-
only ever seen them
think
in the
so.
movies.
Thank God you took the goldfish out of that bowl, because I remember the first key parties you had, people were just dumping it in, filling that bowl with keys.
Well, the
And
worst thing is-
eventually,
You
He'll
reach
just
in
get
and
pushed
you
out.
reach in,
Death.
you pull it out a goldfish, and you're like, I guess I'm doing it with this goldfish tonight.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the worst part.
Yeah, and then like fucking Vince
the
Clortho
rules.
shows up, and you're like, ugh, okay.
I guess I pulled off the ritual. Didn't even mean to.
All right. Well, what I was saying before, though, was just that we've tortured Hallie a lot, so we decided to give her a
Well,
little
Dan,
more.
what do we do on this podcast? What do we do on this
Okay,
podcast?
all right. Back to everyone. Back to one. Re-rack. On this podcast, we watch a bad movie or a movie that was, let's say, presumed bad by critics or audiences, and then we talk about it. And this time around, Hallie was given a list of things we were under consideration, and she immediately came back within seconds with Last Christmas out of the list given. Which not surprising, but a good movie, one that I wanted to watch anyway for the show.
So not total freedom. I was given a list.
That's true.
It wasn't.
You weren't
pick your
given total
wildest-
freedom. Da 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 da. Freedom. Da 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 da. Freedom.
So
That's
yeah,
a George
Dan, why
Michael
don't you
song.
take those lies and make them truths?
You know what I learned from this movie, guys? I'm jumping ahead.
What's that?
I never really listened to the lyrics of George Michael songs before, so I didn't realize that they're all super depressing. That
I
it's-
know. It made me feel like he was so sad. We should have seen
Yeah.
the tragic, untimely death coming.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's death we should see coming at some point. Nobody escapes this life alive. But
Except for Aslan Rex, the Dark Lord of Darkon.
fair point. You're right. I forgot about that. Very common.
Although he is trapped in his realm and can't leave because his phylactery keeps growing with every year. What a horrible fate for Aslan.
Terrible.
The Lord of Daikon, the Radish.
He's the Lord of Daikon the Radish.
Yeah.
He's a radish-based lich.
A radish king. He lives inside a radish. There's a scene we'll talk about, I guess, where they're on a date. They're ice skating to a George Michael song, and the lyrics are all about how God turned his back on his children, and his children have escaped. And it was like, what is this song? This sad man. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Last Christmas. It's a romantic comedy. It has a good pedigree. Emma Thompson wrote it. Paul Feig directed it. It has Emma Thompson in it. It has Emilia Clarke of Game of Thrones as our lead, and Henry Golding of Crazy Rich Asians is the very handsome man in
I
both
think you're leaving
movies.
out that international superstar Michelle Yeoh is in the movie.
Yep.
Patty
Yep.
LuPone shows up for one scene, which seems
One
weird.
inexplicable. What's weird is
Who
that
is she?
she was buying those little baby Jesuses in the store in the very beginning. That was Broadway
Wait,
legend
that was
Patty
LuPone?
LuPone. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm thinking of Bernadette Peters. I was like, she looks different.
What happened to Bernadette Peters' face? Because she looks like Patty LuPone. And
She seems like she'd still have a beautiful singing voice, but a different kind of beautiful singing voice.
I thought it was very funny that Rob Delaney and Peter Serafinowicz are mentioned in the opening credits, and they appear for roughly 45 seconds in the film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But all I'm saying, there's a lot of talent behind this.
One of the hosts, or one of the hosts from the Great British Bake Off, appears in a scene.
That's true.
And
Oh wait, when?
and she's in the ice audition.
skating. Yeah.
Guys, it sounds like Elliot is trying to horn in on my job this time and just
Sorry,
do the
sorry.
summary. And no way I am driving this fucking car today.
Okay, I won't even mention that Peter Meigen from the highest grossing Danish film ever, I think Flame and Citron, was also in it. Oh, actually, you know what? Maybe it was just the biggest budget Danish film ever.
Is he the father?
Stuart's doing it, and now I'm going to be done talking for most of the episode because Stuart's going to summarize. Stuart, take it away.
Okay, so before I get into the actual plot of the movie, guys, we have to address, I think, a kind of big part of this movie, which is there is a very crazy, in some ways very obvious twist in it. Mm-hmm. Are we going to just go along with the summary of the movie and get to the twist when it happens in the movie? Or should we just bring it up right now and talk about the movie in context of this crazy twist? A twist that many people just guessed as soon as the movie trailer hit the internet.
Okay, guess what? Apparently, so I had watched I had maybe like a half hour or to 45 minutes left, and I put it on pause, and I was just like going to the bathroom or something, and then I walked past my husband, and I was like, this movie is so good. I just don't know what's going to happen at the end. And he was like, I'm guessing it probably has something to do with like the second line of the song. And I was like, what? No, it's not going to be. And then.
So we're gonna air this dirty laundry, which is not the song this is based on. This is a movie inspired by the Wham song "Last Christmas," where the mysterious love interest is actually, I guess, a ghost of a man who donated his heart to our lead exactly 1 year ago when she was in need of a heart transplant. So it is as much like the first two lines of the song as you can imagine.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the third line of the song in which she would have just given that heart away the next day.
Yeah.
That would have been strange.
It would have been crazy because she would need it to live. She'd just pull it out of her chest and give it to what's his name from Temple of
To
Doom?
Mola Ram.
Yeah, Mola Ram.
Mola Ram.
Yeah.
Now, let me just say that there are metaphorical ways to read this twist that I actually kind of like, and I may make an argument for later. But the movie makes it hard to make the metaphorical argument when there are things like she goes to places that only this guy would have known, which suggests that there's some sort of literal supernatural quality that receiving someone else's organ has. But
Just like in Body Parts.
yeah.
So now that we got that out of the way, everybody lets out
Suspend your
a.
disbelief.
Now that we've
people.
spoiled the movie. Oh, guys, before we talk about this Sixth Sense movie, let's just mention, he's also a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, guys, before we talk
Guess
about
I'm the only one who believes in love. But
before we talk about the ghost and Mrs. Muir, I should let you know the guy's a ghost.
well, that was in the title. That wasn't even implied by the title, like this one.
Does that mean really if somebody went to see that movie and they got in after the opening credits and then they were like at the end like he was a ghost?
I mean, guys, what is a ghost? Is it a tragedy condemned to repeat itself time and again? An instant of pain, perhaps? Something dead which still seems to be alive?
Wait,
An
hold on.
emotion suspended in time?
I think the third
like
one.
a blurred photograph, like an insect trapped in amber. Is that Tom Webster?
What is it out?
So
okay,
let's get into the
Stuart, wait,
movie.
hold on. I must know. Are you quoting something, or did you just write that out ahead of time?
It's the opening narration of Devil's Backbone, one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
So we open with a church choir singing I can't tell if it's a George Michael song or a Wham song, but it is basically letting us know this is not our daddy's Christmas church choir performance.
Also, it's in Yugoslavia, so my dad's never been there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh yeah, I
I've
guess.
been there. My dad's been there. I've been there, you guys. If you have any questions, I've been there.
Was it like that? Well, was it like that when you were there? Was it just kids' church choirs?
Yeah. And there was sausage, I remember. I was like 7.
Okay.
I ate a
let's-
sausage and then children's choirs.
Okay, so let me start over. It opens with a church choir singing a George Michael or possibly Wham song in a Yugoslavian church, and that goes to show that this is Hallie's father's or Hallie's daddy's church choir performance. And
Now,
we
I
are
would just
introduced
mention
to-
Stuart was accurate with me. It was not my dad's church choir performance. Being Jewish, he didn't go to church, wasn't in a choir, and again, as stated, has never been to Yugoslavia.
I just want to clarify in case there's any confusion. My dad is actually in a choir, and it is nothing like this. So the way that statement was phrased, there might be some confusion. I don't want anyone to confuse it with the Colorado Chamber Choir.
So Stuart should have said, this is in some ways like Hallie's daddy's church
Yep.
choir.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we are introduced to Katarina, a young Yugoslavian girl who is singing the lead or solo of this song. And her mother, played by Emma Thompson, is in the, I guess, audience or the congregation watching and loving every minute of it. Flash forward to 2017.
That was in
little
1999. That last part.
girl- okay. Cool. Good point. That little girl is all grown up now and singing the same song alone in a bar, drowning her sorrows.
Yeah.
We learn through a conversation with a potential suitor that she has family troubles. She loves George Michael. We learn she's living out of a suitcase, and after some flirting, she goes home with this fellow. But
Wait,
her-
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
Can I ask a question? That
Yeah, of
actor,
course.
he what is he from? He looked so
Last
familiar.
Christmas. He's from this movie.
Oh, thanks.
Although
Dan, you want
No,
to
what's-
hit the internet and find out?
I do want to, as long as we're talking about actors, just off the top, our lead, our adult version of that young girl is, of course, Amelia Clarke, who you may know from Game of Thrones or the Terminator Genesis.
But you did not
or
know
Solo.
her like this.
Solo,
No.
a Star Wars story.
Yes. I
I'm gonna
liked
say
her
right off
quite
the
a
bat,
bit.
she's really good in this.
Yeah.
She is so charming. Who
Yeah.
knew she had that dimension?
It makes me feel like she was. I never really. I didn't think she was bad as Daenerys, but I didn't love her as Daenerys. But I think she's great in this, and it's like, oh, because she's got like a sparkle to her that
Yes.
the Game of Thrones couldn't take advantage of.
I think
You
she
know.
is very ill-served by like the sort of solemn roles that she's been forced to take so far, because I think that she has a real like talent for light comedy and a charm, and yeah, I liked her a lot.
So, she goes home with this fellow, and that initial bliss is ruined because it turns out her new friend is married and she is out on the streets again. She's a bit of a mess. She works at what is this, a year-round Christmas store called Yuletide? Where she has to dress as an elf, and she has "ho ho ho" written on her hand as a note, which I thought was a pretty kind of funny touch. Like the kind of note you'd write yourself to remember, and you're like, I gotta remember to say "ho ho ho." We're introduced to her boss, Santa, who is played by the always incredible Michelle Yeoh, who is like this tough but fair character. Though we learn later on that Santa is just an adopted name and that she picks a different name related to whatever business she's working.
That's one of those little moments where I was like, yeah, I didn't think you needed to explain that movie. Like, I didn't really think her birth name was Santa. Like, that seems, I think you just take it for granted that the person who runs a Christmas store is just going to take the name Santa. It wasn't like, well, why did my parents curse me with the name Santa? Now all I can do is run a Christmas store.
I also want to say that Audrey yelled aloud every time Santa was wearing a new outfit. So, as someone who doesn't necessarily always pay the most attention to clothes in movies, I just wanted to note that that was an A-plus ensemble factory from her, was the general thought.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle Yeoh is one of those performers who can kind of do no wrong in my eyes, so yeah. Any moment she's on screen is a win for me. So this scene, this like kind of first day of work we see, it kind of introduces three main plot points. The first, her sister Marta, who's kind of the like stuffy sister, visits and guilt trips her into visiting their parents, that family stress. At one point, she is distracted by a well-dressed hottie, Tom, played by Henry Golding, and then a bird shits in her eye.
Big shit.
And then,
I want to say that both for reasons that will become clear later in the movie, obviously, when the twist arrives, but also like just because of Henry Golding's general demeanor, it is kind of baffling the degree to which she seems off-put by him. She continually talks about how weird he is when he is a perfectly normal-looking man and handsome and polite and quiet. Like he's not doing anything for her like giant reaction, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like,
I think that we're supposed to take from it that she is so used to kind of losers and bad boys that someone who is nice is taken as weird. But also, like, he is kind of weird. He's one of those guys who's like, let me show you all my favorite hidden corners of the city.
No,
and
he does get a little weird.
Another tour date.
I would also say, I think it had to do with her embarrassment by getting pooped on a bird in front of him. Because if you remember, when she first saw him, she was like dusting the little Christmas ornaments and looked through the window and was like, me likey. And then she went outside, got pooped on a bird, and then after that, she was like, you're so weird, get away from me. And I was like, you liked him.
The weird thing is, to me, he gets weirder and weirder throughout the movie as his interest in her clearly gets less and less romantic and more therapeutic as the movie goes on.
That was
to the point where I was like, so you got to be a ghost because why else are you? I don't understand why you're looking for this relationship right now.
I mean,
Stop describing all my relationships, Elliot.
I know, Stuart, you're really into wounded birds that you can pick up and heal and put them back in their nest.
Well, I mean, this character is like a manic pixie dream guy in that, like, he is literally just showing up to improve our main character's life for reasons that
Let me just
make
ask,
more sense.
Were you guys offended by that?
Oh, not
as men? To see men portrayed that way on screen.
I was like, finally, someone's telling my story. I don't know.
I knew that he was a manifestation of her psyche, so it didn't really bother me that much. But I will say that I was kind of relieved that I knew that he was a manifestation of her psyche, because I was like, well, if he's a real man, like, this would not be a healthy relationship between the two of them over time. Like,
not at all.
He would just be like a font of wisdom, like, for her, and that would all be all of it, and like she would grow dependent on it. Like, it would not be a good thing. It
Or
only
because
works
he helped
as
her through
therapy.
that, or because he helped her through that trauma, she would always associate him with that trauma, and then that would poison their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, the relationship we built on a feeling of obligation. You helped me through this hard time, so now I guess I have to be with you. It's kind of like Zazie Beetz in Joker, where as I was watching it, I was like, this character better be a figment of his imagination, because if not, her actions make no sense as human behavior. You know, it's
like that she was interested in him at all.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This crazy weirdo who has a body like Christian Bale in The Machinist. Yeah, definitely.
It's all sharp corners on that guy. So, and then, so of course, as I said, we have our little meet cute. She meets Tom, who, again, I can't stress this enough, is a ghost. And then the last
I didn't know. You watch it and you didn't know.
I'm not saying that it's obvious, like, while she's talking to him, her hand passes through his fucking ectoplasm or some shit.
You know what it's...
She reached out to embrace him and fell on the street.
Yeah, the part where...
That's not bird shit, it's ectoplasm.
The part where she
touched
him and her hand passed through and she felt the chill of the grave in her bones.
You know, Stuart, you saying I can't stress this enough, he's a ghost. To me, it sounded like you were trying to like set Hallie up with someone, for instance, and we're like, now he's a very nice guy, handsome, he's got a job. I cannot stress this enough. He is a ghost. Like, you will not be with him long term. He will be called to the other side. Anyway, sorry.
I will say, if he was not a ghost, it does risk falling into the stereotype of the kind of like sexless Asian man, which him being a ghost who doesn't exist and is just her heart telling her to be a better person makes a little bit okay, but you know.
But she was into him, so I think it avoids that.
She was
attracted to him.
That's true, but he was very like, it was one of those things where she's like, come sleep with me, and he's like, no, I can't. We barely know each other. And it's like, all right, that was one of the moments where I was like, this dude better be a ghost. Like,
do you guys know what this means?
What's that?
It means I finally saw a ghost.
Aw, Hallie, we did it. It's a Christmas miracle.
Literally.
Hallie just did like a little ta-da motion.
Okay, and then the last plot point we deal with on that first day of work is we find out that Santa has a mysterious relationship with a distinguished-looking Colin Firth German-type guy.
Danish.
And Danish, sure. And at some point... Eventually, she helps, a couple scenes later, she's going to help Santa get that date with that fella.
Colin Firth is way hotter than that guy. I think that's...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The guy is also, he is a little weird in that he is obsessed with Christmas trinkets. And there's part of me that's like, where he keeps presenting them as like, this is what you're into, right? And I wanted to see the scene where Michelle Yeoh was like, okay, straight talk. I just do this for a living. I'm like not really into Christmas novelty crap. Like you don't have to keep bringing me lots of Christmas stuff, but we don't get to see that scene.
No, he's into cabbage. He's into sauerkraut.
Well, his family is a sauerkraut family. Yeah.
I do want to say also, I think it bears noting that these scenes between the two of them are played broadly comic, but I found it genuinely funny where they immediately are dumbstruck with one another and cannot say anything without huge pregnant pauses in between them and gazing into each other's eyes and not breaking eye contact. So that's the gag of those scenes.
Yeah. It's funny, and it also keeps the romantic pressure on the movie. So, Kate leaves work and rushes to perform in an audition. She has a couple of these throughout the movie where she performs and Peter Zarafinowicz is mean to her. She's trying to be a singer, right? That's the whole deal.
Yes.
But she has not been able to sing since who knows
she
at this
sounded
point.
bad. At this audition, she did not sound good, guys.
Yeah. Wow.
This was not
We should have
your
gotten
daddy's-
Hallie in the panel of judges on that.
Hallie would have been like, pitchy, dog. Very pitchy.
I'll go there.
Yeah, that's why they
Listen,
bring you
I'll
into the
go
room.
there.
They need somebody who does the straight talk.
I
Now that
really want to
James
see.
Woods has been canceled.
I want to see Hallie Hacklin so badly on The Voice, and her just to be like, "That was not good," and then no other commentary. Or if someone blows them away, she's just like, "That was good."
So she keeps bumping into Tom. He behaves mysteriously. He is vague about his lifestyle and where he lives. He describes his own behavior as kind of serial killery, which I guess is meant to hang a lantern on it. And then he takes her to his secret garden, and they sit on a bench.
Yeah, which is one of the many things in here that does not make sense if this is a manifestation simply of her consciousness, because, how does she know about this secret bench, which turns out to be a bench that was donated in his honor, at the end of the movie? Unless the heart inside her, the organ, still has some sort of sentience.
Yeah.
Now it's possible she fell asleep while watching a show called London's Hidden Secrets, and then just absorbed it subconsciously. But I think it was that a ghost took her there. Hallie, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't understand, Dan, why you're so committed to this being a manifestation of her emotional needs when you make us watch all these fucking stupid movies that are all fantastical about other dimensions. Can't it just be a supernatural intervention?
Well,
Great show.
because
Supernatural
I
intervention.
guess because I don't like that as much. That's that sort of buys into this notion that there is going to be some sort of intervention in your life, and that's what you need to change. Whereas I think you can read this movie metaphorically, if not literally, as this is her helping herself because that person is not actually there. And I find the movie more interesting as a light comedy drama about figuring out how to come through depression and trauma than a romantic comedy where the guy's just an angel or something.
I mean, he's not one; he's a ghost. Two,
I'm saying that type of movie.
I'm curious, Dan. Do you feel it is less sophisticated as a story if it literally has a literal ghost than if it is a metaphorical ghost who just represents her inner thoughts and feelings?
No, what I'm saying, I'm fine with it being a ghost story where the ghost is a metaphor for that. If it's a reading where it's just supernatural intervention, that I don't care for.
Well, can it be both? Can it literally be supernatural intervention, but you, the viewer, are taking it as a metaphor for your own life? Since if you watch the movie and you're like, oh, well, I better wait for a ghost to tell me what to do, that would be not a reasonable reaction
Elliot,
to a
we are
movie.
saying exactly the same thing. I'm saying
Well,
that
but I think we're...
No, hold on. I'm saying that I can take it both supernaturally and as a metaphor. I can take it as that way. But if someone simply takes it as supernatural, I do not like that.
So you're saying for a smart person like you, who can read it at both levels, it's a good movie, but for a dum-dum who's like, ghosts, okay, I thought they were scary, but now I know they're good and they'll help me with my problems.
I don't know why
you think it's bad for them.
I don't know why
for the
you gotta
dum-dums.
bring out your poison pen for the takedown on this one.
No, I think you're splitting a hair that you might not need to be splitting.
Well, I mean, it's the hair that I need to split in my own mind. You're telling me I
Okay,
don't need
that's
to
fair.
split it. I got.
That's a mind hair.
I got to split things sometimes.
As long as you know you're splitting for yourself.
Everybody's got to
So
split.
we're talking about
Gotta
splitting.
split.
Now that we're talking about splitting, let's talk about how Kate splits hanging out with Tom and goes to live with her, goes to stay with some friends. But her quirky, selfish bullshit just keeps ruining her relationships. She destroys this poor guy's fucking model collection, and that is a bridge too far for me.
Was that when you
and-
turned on Kate when you saw that she ruined not one but two of his craft projects?
Exactly. Yeah. what I did was I turned to my cat Meatball, who's been knocking my stuff off my shelves, and I said, "That's you. You're that. You're horrible."
So at this point, this became a horror story for you because you're like, okay, it's a ghost and a demon woman teaming up together to wreak God knows what havoc on crafts across London.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a little story within a story where, so she's staying with her pregnant friend and her friend's husband. And one thing I will give this movie credit for is that this is maybe the most multi-ethnic cast in a London set movie that I've seen in maybe ever. And I really liked that they were taking advantage of the fact that London is a diverse city. But that she ruins they flash back, her friend is pregnant, and they flash back to 9 months ago when she ruined her friend's husband's model ship. And I think the assumption is that he was so distraught that her friend had to have sex with him to make him, to like take his mind off of it, and got pregnant, and now they're going to have the baby. So that baby owes its life to Kate ruining that model ship. And that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. People over ships, that's what I say. People over hobbies, you know?
I don't know if I agree with that, but that's fine. We can be different.
Seeing as I'm a parent and now have no hobbies, it really is people over hobbies in my life.
So, now...
I think of parenting as a hobby.
It's the toughest hobby you'll ever love.
You're like, and I can pick it up and put it down whenever I feel like.
My career is, of course,
I've been
wine
working on
drinking.
this child for at least a year, and he's still not done. One of these days.
Yeah, I mean, until you start making money off being a parent, you're still an amateur.
But it also raised a question. So, Stuart, if your models got destroyed, would human intimacy make up for that, or would you be like, no, get away from me. This doesn't do the same thing.
Yeah, that's basically, I think that's kind of the plot of the 40-Year-Old Virgin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she returns to work, but it appears that somebody has broken into Yuletide, the Xmas store that she works at. That's me reading my notes directly, because I wrote Xmas down.
Fine.
And so Santa is talking to the police, and after the police leave, Santa reveals that she had to fake the break-in Kate had forgotten to lock up, and that she made Santa commit a crime to cover for her. Mm-hmm. So she really let Santa down on that.
I mean, the real Santa commits, hundreds of thousands of crimes every year. Just so much breaking and entering.
Trespassing, hate crimes, lots of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to have broken a window now and then.
They've got to assume that there's a chimney that's too narrow, and he's like, they'll love these toys. I'll just smash this window and get in. And then he's like, ooh, look at this jewelry and this computer. They shouldn't have left that lying around. I'll just put that into Santa's little sack, and you know what? I'll keep the toys, too.
This would look lovely on Mrs.
It's a
Claus.
fair trade for all the toys I've handed out over the years. Santa deserves to wet his beak a little.
Time for Santa to get his beak wet. And then the homeowner is like, Santa, what are you doing here? And Santa's like, get away, and shoots the homeowner. And then, like,
And the homeowner's like, it's fair, it's the purge.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that Christmas Eve is the purge night also. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Santa's just throwing bombs at people's houses. It's purge night. Don't worry about me.
So she bumps into Kate. Kate's feeling pretty down. She bumps into Tom again. He takes her to a homeless shelter. And it seems at this point it's like Tom's pretty mysterious. Despite being a ghost, we're not sure if he lives at the homeless shelter or whatever. He says that he like helps out there, or he volunteers. He encourages her to help out. But she is hesitant. Later on, obviously, when looking for Tom, she ends up accidentally helping at a homeless shelter.
It is a real dick move, I think, for her to be like, I don't really have a home. I'm effectively homeless. And he's like, okay, here's the homeless shelter. Why don't you stay here? I'll call you on your bluff. And she's like, I guess I could go stay at my parents' house. And like, I thought that was a real like smug move on his part.
Yeah.
For a ghost who doesnn't need a home. Like, easy for him to say. He could just, like, haunt wherever. He could just float around,
That's what I do.
Dan would
It's like
I'm
having...
guessing, haunt the local locker rooms.
Hold on. Libelous accusation. Sorry.
Yeah, Dan, I guess your ghost can sue Stuart after you die. If your ghost doesn't just hang around locker rooms, which you know it's going to do. And you're like, I'm suing Stuart. I'm at a dressing room, not a locker room.
Okay. So she gets a ride to visit her mother. She gets a ride from her father, who drives a cab. Obviously, all the relationships in this family are chilly. Her mother's played by Emma Thompson, who, let's just say, makes a meal out of this role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I think adds just enough, for at least for me, just enough energy to her, like, you know, like her big Yugoslavian mother performance.
Well, and they never go into total detail with it, which is fine, but they're clearly, I guess they're like Croatian or Serbo-Croatian, and it's implied that they had to escape during the terrors in Yugoslavia when you know there was all sorts of ethnic strife and the country fell apart.
I mean, it's not implied. They said it right out, right?
Well, but they never
She was
make they like never. She says like all my friends are dead and like we had to leave, but they don't go much more than that. Like I was never sure
No.
if they were.
Amelia Clark says it at one point. She's like, "Yeah, my family all had to leave there during the terror, didn't she?"
Yeah, no, they say, but never mind. They say I was never quite clear if they were Serbs or Croats or Serbo-Croatian.
Oh.
It's not really necessary, you know. But
Yeah, they're
So
refugees
her-
is all that's important.
yeah,
Yeah, she stays the night with her mom, and her mom takes her to a doctor's appointment in the morning, and that's where we get a little more background that Kate has been dealing with a medical condition, and she's not been going to the doctor enough, and her mother is still a point of stress, etc., etc.
she's dealing with a very serious condition called movie heart problemitis, a loosely defined problem with her heart that.
Well,
You know.
wait, hold on. That's now, like, by this time in the film, she has had a heart transplant, and the concern is that she needs to live her life more healthily because she is weakened because she had gone through this transplant. That is the concern.
Yeah,
It's not like she's got movie heart-itis. I just want to be
I
fair
think
to
it's
what's
movie
going on.
heartitis.
Okay.
But obviously, she's still having trouble moving on with after suffering the both immense physical trauma of getting a heart transplant, as well as the emotional problems
It would be
the
pre-
emotional difficulty of it.
It would be pretty funny if the doctor was like, well, we took an x-ray and there's a ghost in your heart. And we apologize. We should have removed it when we got the transplant. The donor heart should have been cleansed of ghosts. That's why we have a priest on staff. But
The good news is eventually that ghost is going to jump out of your heart and teach you how to live your life. But in between, it's going to be a couple rough months there.
yeah, luckily it's a mostly benevolent ghost. We've had a few people come in with malignant ghosts. Very dangerous, very bad. But you've
So
got
a benign ghost.
you've got a
Benign
well,
ghost, yeah.
it's a charming ghost, which is the best
like
thing
a
to have.
like a topper.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
wait,
You got
I guess
like
Topper was not the ghost. He was just the guy bedeviled by Cary Grant and who else was in
Yeah.
that? I don't know.
Mrs. Topper.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's like Peter O'Toole in the movie High Spirits. So we
Or
not
or
the
or
rock
Vin-
and roll band High Spirits, which is a different thing. So
when Peter O'Toole was with them. Sorry.
So Kate goes on further adventures with Tom. He takes her to a skating rink, and she skates around. She goes to a family dinner where everybody's mad at each other, and then Kate fucking outs her sister to her parents, which is kind of wild. Like that, I feel like that strays into unforgivable territory. I don't know about you guys.
This is where the movie was kind of like, should we try to be Fleabag for a couple minutes? We're close enough. No, this is too much. Not Fleabagging. Get out of here. Enough. Like it is. It's pretty intense for her to do. But her parents either are pretending or kind of don't seem to pick up too strongly on it. So that scene could have gone a lot more dramatic.
And Emma Thompson does a lot of
They seem pretty cool with it.
yeah.
Actually, I mean, they do seem almost instantly pretty cool with it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is the they backed off on some of the bad parts of that scene a little bit.
Well, there's something. See, that's the thing about this movie that got to me a little bit, which is that it is very much a fluff Christmas movie about a misguided woman who gets put on her way by a ghost and falls in love with that ghost. But they keep kind of hinting at these more serious things like refugees and xenophobia in Britain or homophobia among like older people. But then they don't. This is going to be a light movie, so they kind of don't want to get too deep into those things. So they just kind of throw them in there for a moment and then back off. And it left me feeling a little confused.
Well, it also, I mean, with the lesbian plot in particular, which I can spoil ahead, like there's all this concern over it, and then we skip ahead at the end of the movie and we see them all together, and like the mom is complimenting the girlfriend and all this stuff, and it does feel like there was a scene missing. Like, I don't think that the parents had to be like angry at her, or I mean, like, they could be like, we are very traditional people, but we love you, as is, we hope the case out there with might happen for people like that, but that scene is missing,
Yeah.
I guess we have to assume it happens during the
Yeah.
mini scenes of her setting up that talent show at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was originally intended to be in the background while the talent show auditions were happening. So, Kate is despondent after her terrible family dinner experience. She goes out drinking. She bumps into Tom again. He takes her to his apartment. And Kate has a kind of a breakdown, and she reveals that a year ago, she'd had a heart transplant and how she's having trouble moving on with her life.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else.
I mean,
and they don't sleep together.
No, he's very gentle and is like.
But he gives her a kiss.
Oh, yeah.
After her request, he gives her a chaste kiss on the lips. But there's a lot of like therapy talk here, where he's like, just living is hard. We have to be easier with ourselves about just getting through the day. And it was like, all right, now he's moving into like self-help book territory.
He passed like the dream of the supportive partner to like all the way on to like ghost therapist, and like even to the degree that like he's like you're going through trauma right now, like all you need is to sleep,
But I did think it was interesting that I thought that this movie and like this scene in particular investigated the idea. I mean, I feel like whenever like transplant is used as a plot point in any sort of like a story, it's like the end point. And it's usually just not examined like this of like, even if everything goes right, it's going to feel really fucking weird when you get a transplant and you have this thing in your body and like you don't know what that means for your future. Something broke and you don't know if it's going to be fixed in the long run. And I don't know, I thought that was like something that I hadn't really thought about when I think about like people getting transplants.
I agree with that too. Like that was maybe my favorite stuff in the movie, just the fact that like she had this close call that most people would think, okay, you would just feel blessed about that, but it creates such, like PTSD and all this other stuff that like I liked that the movie was about that and about getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, I think on some level it justifies the parallel between the idea of like refugees and transplants in that way. I
just want to mention we mentioned the phrase ghost therapist. There's the movie pitch. It's a comedy. Just because he's dead doesn't mean his patients don't still need him. And the ghost comes back, and I can see the scene in the trailer where a patient gets really mad and picks up like something like a stapler from his desk and throws it through him, and it hits the wall, and then he goes, "Are we done?" And that's when it goes to it says ghost therapist.
I feel like after the events of this movie, she needs to just keep Tom's ghost around to have her like set up an inspirational Instagram account or something.
Yeah,
something with a lot of different fonts. Let's see. Talking to Tom kind of inspires Kate, so she sets out to help people. She starts singing carols in the street, and then that kind of right in front of the homeless shelter, and then they bring her into the shelter, and she starts organizing it's like a Christmas talent show, right? Or like a Christmas pageant?
It's like a fundraiser talent show where people with money will pay to see the homeless cavort in front of them for their amusement. There's a little bit of a thing here that bugs me where earlier in the movie she tells her boss, she's like, I don't think I'm going to do auditions anymore. They're not good for me. And Michelle Yeoh is like, good, I'm glad you came to that. And she's like, now it's time to make the homeless audition. Because like, is she really going to turn down any of these people and not let them be in the talent show? Like, how cruel would that be? Like,
no, they got to sing for their supper, Elliot. So then she bumps into Tom again. She's ready to make a full commitment, but Tom has a secret. So they get in a fight, and she runs off.
No, I just like the secret thing. Just reminded me, like while I was watching it, I like there's the scene later on where he where she's figured it out, and then he shows up again later, and I just imagine him being like, ooh, so I'm sorry about keeping it secret that I'm a ghost. Like, I really should have, that's on me. Like, I really...
Yeah, or she bumps into him later and he's like, I'm sorry, but I'm married.
I'm a married ghost.
I'm married to another ghost. And then a lady ghost comes by. Yeah, who's this, Tom? He just hands her...
He's like, no, not her. Him. I'm also gay.
I should have mentioned I'm gay and a ghost and I'm married. Did I not? And also, I'm secretly a millionaire. But I did it. And he hands her a card that says, "I'm sorry." It shows like a bashful ghost. It says, "I'm sorry," and then you open it says that I'm a ghost.
Yeah, it says, "I made a boo boo."
I made a boo.
It says, "I really put the boo in boo boo."
Yeah.
Cool. So, meanwhile, when Kate is visiting her mom, Petra, her mother, sees like the news and sees anti-immigrant demonstrations on the news. And then later on, Kate is riding a bus and there's some racist dickhead shouting at people, telling people to leave the country. And Kate is inspired to step up and like form a bond with a couple that is speaking Yugoslavian.
I think they're speaking Serbo-Croat. Or it's like Yugoslavian. I mean, Yugoslavia as a nation was the conglomeration of a number of different territories that were majority of different ethnic groups. So, but she also, this is a moment where she embraces her heritage. As the whole movie, she's been rejecting the name Katerina in favor of Kate because of her favorite movie, Kate and Leopold. She could have named herself Leopold, but for whatever reason, she decided not to.
Wasn't that about ghosts too?
That was about time travel, right?
Yeah, he was Hugh Jackman was a man out of time. He was a noble from the past, where everything was better. Everything, the gentleman back in the past.
That's
Everyone
not a ghost.
was so nice to women back in the past.
What is a ghost? Is a ghost a tragedy condemned to repeat itself time and again?
We laughed
An
ourselves
instant of pain,
again.
perhaps. Something dead, which still seems to be alive. An emotion suspended in time, like a blurred photograph. Like an insect trapped in amber.
Yeah.
So,
Stuart,
Kate-
I like how it feels like we're like your tool set, and you're like peeking us. You're like finding us on the shelf in the video display that we have.
yeah. You're talking about the storage locker that I have to record the podcast in.
It does, for anyone who's trying to imagine it, it's like in the movies when there's a camera shot from inside a refrigerator when someone opens up a refrigerator. Like, that's what it looks like while we're looking at like, we're the ketchup, and he's just looking into the fridge.
I'm like, why is there all this fucking Sunny D? I just want my purple stuff. So, or like, maybe like an old jar of like pickled cabbage will start talking to me, and it's a commercial for cleaning your refrigerator. So
is that,
Kate
wait,
goes
that's
around-
the thing that, they have commercials for that? Like, from the Clean Fridge Council. Clean your refrigerator, won't you? Like, there's a refrigerator, and he's like, oh, I'm so full of dirt. I don't feel so good. Why don't you clean your fridge? Give your fridge a fridge cleaning day. Brought to you
why
by
are
the
you
Clean
putting
Fridge Council.
dirt in a fridge. I mean, it doesn't need to be cold. It's shelf stable, Elliot.
Oh, why are people putting cold dirt in me? So, like, somebody's like, I'm going on vacation. I better put this flower pot in the fridge so the flower stays fresh.
So Kate starts to, it's like when people put batteries in the freezer. You're like, what, do you want to make a remote control cold?
Are you supposed to put batteries in the freezer?
I think so, yeah.
Also,
the
it could
fridge.
be a commercial for the refrigerators that are connected to the internet, because isn't their job to tell you if something's bad or not? They
Why do you
like
need
survey everything.
Why do you need the internet for that?
Because I don't know,
You wanna-
but that's the point of them.
You want to see if your fruit is bad from a distance.
Yeah, so you can check on your phone.
Because they're in the bad food chat room.
You do.
Take a look at these hot pics.
Yeah, I don't want my refrigerator attached to the internet, and suddenly there's just a bunch of porn in the refrigerator. I don't need that. I like my porn hot, not cold.
All these pop-ups.
I'm just trying. You're like pushing pop-up windows out of the way to get to the eggs. You're like, oh, come on.
So Kate starts to try and make amends. She attempts to repair the bond with her sister. It goes okay. She spends time with her mom and goes to a farmer's market. She goes and starts apologizing to all the friends that she is disappointed. I think this scene is set to like freedom or something, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I did like the implication that her relationship with her mom was not so bad that it couldn't be fixed by one afternoon at a farmer's market.
Yeah. When they took shots together.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, her mom seems like a little overbearing, but not that. I mean, pretty normal mom, like not that different than. It's like the kind of person where you have to be like, Mom, but it wasn't like there's no reason to leave the house.
But also, at the end of the movie, Mom and Dad, who have not talked basically for years, seem like happy together, or at least like very friendly. They've accepted the daughter, like everyone's happy, and the implication is the one problem in this family was our lead, like that our lead somehow dragged down the entire family until she became better.
That can happen. I have had friends where their family is destroyed by a sibling who's
Yeah.
just like such a hard person to deal with. But every now and then, a ghost comes in, sets
Yep.
that family straight. So, Dan, I guess what I'm saying is this movie should be taken literally because it does happen.
Okay.
So she returns to Tom's apartment. She wants to share all of her good vibes with her buddy Tom, only to find that a stranger dressed similarly to him, who makes his living as a realtor, is selling the apartment.
What?
In one of the cupboards, she finds Tom's cell phone, and then all of a sudden she realizes she's looking around the office. She sees all the things. She realizes she's been talking to Kaiser Soze the whole time. It hits her like a ton of bricks. Tom died last Christmas. He got hit by a bus. Then he donated his heart, and that heart now resides in her chest.
Yeah.
Can you believe it, Dan?
We should have known from the lyrics. Last Christmas, got hit by a bus.
I gave my heart to Amelia Clark.
Okay, wait. I had a question. Did you guys? Was this the joke, or was it only funny to me? At first, I was like, "Oh, I'm so clever for realizing that this was funny," and then I'm like, "Oh, maybe this is the point of the thing." But the thing that he keeps telling everyone is look up. But then he was like on a bike and got hit by a truck. So
That his philosophy on life, look up, is just tied in with him not looking up.
exactly.
Yeah.
How did you hit? You hurt your pointer finger. Are you okay? You're pointing at us vehemently, and I saw a Band-Aid over it.
I know. It's really, my child is obsessed with pointing, so this is a serious injury in my household. I caught myself on a cooking item I was washing.
Make up a story. Make it up, yeah.
No, I had made a cake for my son. We used the feature that's the grater feature in the food processor.
Oh,
And then when
yeah.
I was washing it, I just sliced my finger. It was
Yeah.
That's a
Those-
common injury in the Kalin household to me. Washing
Graters.
something sharp and you get those shallow cuts where there's a lot of blood, but it takes forever to heal and like
Exactly.
those are gross.
I think.
And then and then I had to give him a bath last night, and everything reopened. And so then I had to wrap my finger up, and there was all this blood, and I left a tissue on the counter while I was putting him to bed. So my husband saw it as a passive-aggressive gesture of like, just so you know, I was bleeding, and I
Wow.
didn't.
I mean, he
ask for
should
any
have.
help.
He should maybe have been the one to give the bath, but I know
Yeah,
your
I mean,
husband does.
especially because it was a bath in lime juice, and you're like, all that citrus right in the cut.
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, this will help, right?
The worst part was when your son took your finger and put it in his mouth, and now he has a taste for human blood. That's never going to go away.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Have we ever talked about having a baby? Really made me think about how horrible it would be if a baby was bitten by a vampire, and so that baby never grows up and is just a baby forever, screaming constantly for blood. And it's like I sometimes lie awake at night worried that's going to happen, and it would be so nightmarish to like your kid never grows up and is always a baby.
Wow, Elliot's writing concept stuff for like 1990s World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade source books.
so we finally got to see also all the scenes, the flashbacks to the scenes with Tom, but Tom's not there because he was a ghost.
Yep. So we finally get that moment. You know, I feel like if I was going to direct a movie just to keep everybody on their toes, I would shoot every scene with at least one person missing, so they think like, "Wait, is my character a ghost the whole time?" So she runs into Ghost Tom. They're sitting on the secret garden bench.
Stuart's sitting with the producers. They're like, Stuart, you're way over budget and you're way over shooting schedule. It's going to be the best prank. Don't worry, guys.
And then we see, of course, as Dan mentioned before, there's a little dedication plaque on the bench in the secret garden to Tom Webster with his catchphrase, "Look up." Theoretically, the last thing that went through his mind before the bus.
Look up, by the way, is one of those things that seems like it's meaningful, but I never quite understood this inspiring message.
Well, if you're looking down, you might not see like a sign that looks like a grasshopper or some shit, like they do in the movie, you know? You don't see those grasshopper signs.
Mm-hmm. So it's like that song from Sesame Street, "Looking at a crack in the sidewalk, I nearly missed the rainbow." That song?
I don't know that song, but it sounds like a George Michael song because it's so depressing.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, go on.
Okay, so then we're at we have the Christmas pageant at the homeless shelter, and basically every character who has shown up in this movie, anyone who has had a speaking role, is there. It is huge. And of course, Kate gets up there in her elf suit and sings "Last Christmas," and the audience loses their fucking minds like it's Event Horizon.
I will say
Voice like an angel. Voice like an angel.
Yeah,
Wish that voice had showed up to the auditions.
Whoa! Wow! Burn. This is a movie that I was pretty cynical about, but this scene I was like, okay, movie, you got me. I like seeing everybody show up and she entertains them and stuff. It did for me what Craig T. Nelson and Mary Steenburgen tangoing to Meatloaf in Book Club did for Dan.
Yep.
I mean, not that I cried, but I was like, okay, you got me, movie.
No, it's a very, very sweet moment.
Then we have, like a family Christmas or Boxing Day meal where the whole family's there. Marta and Nora. Nora, that's the name of the girlfriend?
No, Alba, right?
Alba?
Yeah, Alba.
Oh, okay. And they're all hanging out. They're having a great old time, telling jokes. And then we get a last shot of Kate sitting in that secret garden in the spring. She seems to have gotten her life together. She looks like she got her hair done and has a new dress, and she looks up into the sky, presumably at Ghost Tom, and then we have credits, and the credits are accompanied by scenes from the movie, unrelated to the credits.
Yeah.
Now, she also, and by the end, she's wearing a lot less makeup, right? Or is she just wearing more natural-looking makeup?
I think she's wearing more natural-looking makeup. That's one thing that kind of bothered me at the end of the movie, honestly, because she looked kind of born again almost. Not to put anyone's religion down. I grew up in a religious household, and that is fine. But she looked scrubbed in a way that seemed to take away, I don't know, something of her personality.
Because you like a girl with some grit on her, a little sin.
Yeah, the sadder but wiser girl for me, Elliot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the librarian.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I think, Dan. I mean, I'm also not a. One of the things that kept me from being into this movie for most of running time is that Christmas is not a magical time for me because it is not a holiday I take part in, and I feel like it is forced. I can't get away from it during that time. But if a ghost came and visited me, I would probably convert. I mean, that's about all the evidence. Then, if a ghost was like, "Hey, I'm a ghost. I'm dead now. This is what the afterlife is like." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to argue with this. This is."
Yeah. That's the
problem
I
why would a ghost
always
prank me?
had in all these fantasy movies where I don't know, there's demons from hell, but the person in charge is still struggling with their faith, and I'm like, I think you just had your worldview confirmed, dude. Just be cool with it all now. Yeah, you know what?
Well, you got to extrapolate that to in the Marvel movies. Why does that world why is that world not been okay, the Norse gods were the real ones. I guess that's the way it is. All this Jesus stuff was kind of a fake this whole time because I can see Thor. He's right there. He's fighting crime. I like it. This is
He's
kind of
much
all the
more of an
evidence.
interventionist god than our
Like,
god.
I've never
I mean,
seen
he isn't
Christ
really
come down
fighting
and
crime in those movies, right?
it
He's
is
just
very
beating
much
giant
crime.
monsters.
I mean, it is the
Those monsters are doing, property damage.
property damage, murder, attempted murder. Like,
Property damage. Dan always puts property before people.
No.
I mean, Ultron was trying to destroy an entire country or city, right? So I feel like that's a crime. But if Jesus came down and was fighting a giant robot, or like a sarcastic robot that was trying to destroy a foreign country, I'd be like, you know what? Judaism, we had a good ride, but but I feel like this says all I need,
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that's basically the end of the movie.
You're not seeing Buddha go up against Thanos. That's all I'm saying,
So we can do our final judgments about whether this is a good bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie kind of liked. Guys, I gotta say, I kind of liked this movie. I thought it was perfectly pleasant. I thought it was fun. I thought she was like super charming in it, and the supporting cast was good. And also, I think I've been thinking about it, and the reason I split that hair before is, for me, if you read this as a sort of supernatural intervention, like that is too close to me for like kind of a divine intervention where it takes away her agency in her own recovery. And so I think that as a movie that appeals to someone, like, doesn't even have to be someone who like has gone through trauma, but maybe someone who is just working through depression or some sort of bad turn in their life. Like, I don't know, I really liked that part of it. I thought it was sort of inspiring in a weird way. So that's what I thought about the movie.
Okay, Hallie, ready for you to roast the movie?
This fucking ruled. I love the movie. No, I think the text I sent. I was trying to find the text I sent to Dan after I watched it, which was something like, hold on, let me find it. We've been texting a lot, so
No, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, we live in the same city, at the same time zone, but I had you over at my house for dinner. But that's okay. Like, we don't need to.
I mean, most of the texting was about technical issues that I had fucked up. But
I said, "Weeping, feel good movie of the century. Nothing snarky to say about it. Renewed my faith in the human race. If you watched it and felt differently, then you are a monster, and I don't want to know you." But
I'm relieved.
So I loved it. I really, I enjoyed the watch. But I guess, Dan, I want to push back after you've made that statement about what you think of it, because there's no real evidence in the movie that she actually does anything to further her own there's no real role that she plays in her own healing besides very much towards the end when she's like, listen, you're bad for me if you're not going to take care of me, so I'm cutting you out of my life. But but as a metaphor for if he's supposed to be we don't see her playing a role in her own healing at all. So all he could be is a metaphor. So I don't think that the movie provides that for me necessarily. Because you don't really see the wheels turning in her head at all until very much towards the end.
No, I mean, well, first off, I don't want to imply that I don't believe everyone could use help in getting over things, and it's good to reach out for help, and you shouldn't have to do it all on your own. So I don't want to give that impression by putting forth my feelings on it, but I do feel like if you accept the central premise that he could be some sort of manifestation of her own need, then you can see everything that he inspires her to do as coming from herself, I guess, is the way I would put. It's a muddy thing. I just find it I don't know. For me, the movie works better or best with that kind of I am realizing how to improve my life by doing things for others kind of feel that I appreciated. I don't know.
So this is a movie that I've watched twice now. I watched it on my own time, and then when I heard we were doing this episode, I decided to watch it again. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the twist is incredibly silly, but I feel like
that a ghost in her heart is showing her the true meaning of helpfulness.
Yep. Thank you for making that text. As opposed to subtext. But yeah, I mean, like Emilia Clarke, I think is very charming. Henry Golding is fine, but man, like Emma Thompson and Michelle Yeoh are so great. They're so much fun to watch. I wonder if Michelle Yeoh and Henry Golding talked about all the fun times they had on the set of Crazy Rich Asians, but maybe that's for the book about the making of this movie. And I feel like for like a test run for like a George Michael themed like jukebox musical, this is a pretty good like initial statement. Like I feel like you could turn this into a full on musical, like a stage musical. So come on, Broadway, get rid of all the COVID and come back with one of those things.
Come on, Broadway, it's on you.
It's an easy step one.
I would say this is a movie I kind of like.
I don't know that I'd go so far as to say that I kind of liked it, because it's not like I would say I don't think this is a bad or a good bad. But I think it's in that realm of like, this is not necessarily a bad movie, but it's not for me type of movie. Like I kept kind of as super charming as Emilia Clarke is, the movie is like never really like funny. And there are a few times when it's trying to be funny. There's a joke about nuts and nutcrackers that I found so incredibly loathsome that it was like, movie, you're better than this, come on. But there were times when I was like, oh, there's a more, like I wanted this movie to be a little bit less cutesy and go a little bit farther into like Emma Thompson and Michelle Yeoh's characters, partly because they're amazing actors, but also like there's something about their experience as like first generation, as like immigrants basically, that are making their way in this place and kind of doing whatever they have to, where I was like, oh, I've never seen like a Christmas movie that is from that angle, but they touched on it a little bit, so that's all right. But I would say, look, if you're looking for a movie to watch with your family when you visit your parents on a holiday, this movie will be fine for everybody, and it'll solve that problem. And I think Stuart is exactly right. This would be, I think, even more successful creatively as a George Michael jukebox or Wham jukebox musical that's on stage. I think the ghost twist would be a lot easier to take as like kind of a fun thing on a stage show than in a movie, because in a movie you're like expecting more.
Well, I was also like, when I was watching this with Audrey, who really enjoys it, but enjoys it more as a bad movie than I do. I think she was like, "Oh, this like twist is so dumb," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is," but I also think, sort of like what you're saying, if this was a movie from like 1938 or something, we'd accept it more because we'd be like, "Oh, okay, like I understand this context for sort of light romantic supernatural comedy," you know?
Well, here's the difference. I think would be if they did it in the 30s, I think there would be probably a more of a genuine sense of like when the reveal or the ending would have more of a genuine sense of religiosity to it, which I think would help in some ways. But also, here's what you do with this movie: don't make it the twist at the end. Have her find out he's a ghost like halfway through, like a quarter of the way in, something, maybe not a quarter, like a third of the way in, and then that way it doesn't become the movie's only twist, and then you get her dealing with a ghost, which opens up a whole new world. So here's what we do: we make it a stage show, we put some more George Michael songs in there, and we find out that he's a ghost earlier in it, so it doesn't feel like it's a slender reed that the whole movie is resting on.
Okay.
It's a little bit like if you made Memento, and at the end you were like, and by the way, he doesn't have his memory. You'd be like, wait, what? That's what I was waiting for this whole time? But when you know that going in, it's just smooth gravy, guys. This is like Caitlin for smooth gravy.
You like smooth gravy?
Here's a lot of people don't realize how smooth gravy can be. And so we here at Smooth Gravy have decided to take out the worst part of gravy, the lumps, and give you just that smooth gravy liquid.
But the lumps are usually the meat.
Yeah, well, we just keep churning that meat till it's super smooth. We sand it down. Sanded meat is another product I've been working on.
Gross.
Hi, I'm Allie Gertz.
And I'm Julia Prescott, and we host
Round Springfield. Round Springfield is a Simpsons-adjacent podcast where we talk to your favorite Simpsons writers, voice actors, and everyone who's worked on the show to talk about shows that aren't The Simpsons. So we're going to be talking to people like David X. Cohen, Yeardley Smith, Tim Long about other projects they've worked on, sometimes projects that didn't go well, some failures, some rejections,
some failed pilots, some failed life events.
Yeah, we just talk to all the failures of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
So if you really love your Simpsons trivia and want to get to know the people who have worked on The Simpsons a little bit better, come by Round Springfield.
Every other week on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
I listen to Bullseye because Jesse always has really good questions.
What did John Malkovich wear when he was 20?
I don't know how to describe it.
There's always that moment where Jesse asks a question that the person he's interviewing has not thought of before.
I don't think anyone's ever said that to me or acknowledged that to me, and that is so real.
Bullseye. Interviews with creators you love and creators you need to know. From MaximumFun.org and NPR.
Okay, well, I promised to keep this a little shorter than normal, so let's move on to the next stuff in the show. We don't have sponsors from a corporation this week, but we have sponsors from you. I think, Stuart, I sent you a Jumbotron. Do you have that?
Heck yeah, you did. And this is your invite to ReviewParty.com, a quirky new podcast. Each week, Brent and Matt find user reviews from across the internet on everything from products to services, hotels to restaurants, found everywhere from Amazon to Google to Yelp. With brains set for comedy, the pair explore the wacky worlds of the reviewers, explaining the inexplicable and finding the insane in the mundane task of writing a review. Join them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or find it all on reviewparty.com. It is reviewparty.com. So join the party, listen to reviewparty.com, the only podcast that reviews reviews.
There's one more thing we'd like to promote. That is, on August 15th, we'll be doing our promised, threatened, long-awaited reading of the script for The Boy Next Door. That's right, this was a reward to our Flophouse listeners for all the charitable giving they gave during our Howard the Duck live talk stream video thing for charity. We were really amazed by how many people turned out for that, how much money they donated. We were really inspired by it, so we did the only thing we could do with that inspiration, and we organized a reading of the script for The Boy Next Door starring Jennifer Lopez and other people. That's going to be Saturday, August 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You want to see it, just go to the Flophouse YouTube page. That's www.youtube.com/c/The Flophouse Podcast. Or you can also just Google Flophouse Podcast YouTube page. I did that, and it took me to the same basic place. It's going to be us. Hallie's going to be there. Should we mention right off the bat that, yes, the dream casting is happening. Dan McCoy will be playing the part of Jennifer Lopez, and Hallie will be playing the titular boy who creeps all over Jennifer Lopez. So if you ever wanted to see Hallie creep on Dan, this is the time to do it. She will have the immortal line, "I love your mom's cookies," as said in the movie The Boy Next Door. So again, that's August 15th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, www.youtube.com/c/The Flophouse Podcast. It should be a lot of fun. Other people will be in the cast too. You'll see them at the time.
Yay. That sounds good. That sounds like something to do, right, guys? To while away the hours.
We're all looking for something to do.
Nothing else to do.
Hey, just get yourself, your family, the ghost that lives in your heart, pop some popcorn, and just tune
you guys,
in.
I was thinking, what if this movie were named The Haunted Heart?
I love it. Kind of gives away the twist, but...
Okay. All right. Sorry for jumping past that before.
Okay, guys, have you ever seen... Could I do a version of the Telltale Heart that's all little kids and it's called the Tattletale Heart?
You could do that.
There's no law against that, right?
Nope.
Let's do letters now from listeners like you who are listening. This is from Tim, last name withheld, who writes, Dear Danny Dan and the Floppy Bunch, who would win in a battle, Stu's liver, Dan's good knee, or Elliot's forearm hair? Also, after rewatching The Disaster Artist and realizing that the movie is not very good. Sorry, I realized that the movie was not very good, and Franco the Younger was a terrible casting choice for Greg Sestero, and his beard looked Nick Cage hairpiece terrible. On the other hand, he was very well cast in Jump Street. What are some of movie history's worst casting choices in your minds? Getting a weird French dude to play the lead in Highlander was sick, though. Thank you for continuing to inject joy into my sad, collapsing veins. Tim, last name withheld.
I'm glad that somebody finally took Elliot down a notch for that crazy-ass arm hair you have.
Yeah, thank you. You're right.
Finally.
Take that. Take that, my Eastern European ancestors. How dare you?
Is it the arm hair on your forearm or the arm hair that creeps out of the edges of your tank tops?
Wow.
You mean my armpit hair?
No, but is it armpit hair when it kind of like sprouts out of the top of your shoulders and then
No, that's shoulder
down toward
hair.
your fingers?
No, that's shoulder hair, Stuart.
Oh, God.
No, you're right. I apologize. It's a crime against nature that even though I evolved from a primate, I retained the body hair of said animal, and I will be talking to my manscaper about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can get that threaded, dude. You can get that threaded right
Wow.
off.
I mean, or it's thick. I could be turned into a topiary. Who knows? Let's do it. Yeah.
We're airing all the laundry. Hey, I'll start
No,
with...
Dan, we're airing what's under the laundry. Mm-hmm. My hair.
Bravo. Miscasting.
Actually, I will say that I end up shirtless at my house a lot because my children are constantly getting gook all over my shirts, and we'll be swimming or something. And my toddler boy, he likes to run his fingers through my chest hair, and he goes, "I like your fur, Daddy. I like your fur."
That's
Cute.
so gross.
I think it's very adorable.
It is cute. It's just...
The part of it that is
Okay.
about my body, that's gross, but what he does is not. There's no sexual aspect to it, Hallie.
Okay.
It's
Although,
cute.
Daddy, I love your fur would be a very sexual thing to say under certain contexts.
I mean, it depends on who's saying it to who.
Yeah. Okay. So, miscasting.
If it was Scrappy Doo saying it to Snagglepuss, then yes,
Yeah.
that's incredibly sexual.
I mean, I certainly am going to have to remove it from my sexual repertoire.
Yeah.
Because I'll just bring up images of Elliot. Okay, so what are we talking about?
We're talking about
So
miscasting, and I think that, like, just to dispense with it up top, obviously there's a huge problem of whitewashing or casting people of not a certain race as a race that I don't think we can necessarily touch on here. But if we're talking about miscasting, I just wanted to say that. But in terms of just the type of person that would have these roles, I mean, Elliot, I interrupted you before I get to mine. What were you going to say?
No, I don't remember.
Oh, sorry. Well, then I'll continue. The thing that came to my mind was appropriate since Emma Thompson was in this. I've got two talk show hosts here. When Emma Thompson was in the movie Late Night, which was almost a Studio 60 level misunderstanding of what it is to be a comedy writer, which was weird since Mindy Kaling wrote it. But
she's not a late night writer.
That's true. I shouldn't, but she surely knows anyway. So Emma Thompson.
You would be surprised. This is just speaking as someone who has recently spent a lot of time with members of the Writers Guild negotiating a contract. You'd be surprised how little anyone knows about how late night writing works.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, fair enough. But anyway, Emma Thompson in Late Night and Robert De Niro in The Joker both fail at convincing that they come out and read monologue jokes every night and people like it.
I mean, Robert De Niro in Joker is, I think, the worst performance as a talk show host I've ever seen. It's so bad. He's so totally uncharismatic, and it's one of those things where it's like, I can't believe they gave Pupkin his own show because he's not very good at it. Because it's the same character from King of Comedy, right? That's the only explanation I can think of is that he got that job in the 80s and now he's coasting like Letterman at the end of his career, and he's just kind of doesn't care anymore. In which case, it's the best performance I've ever seen.
Anyone else have anything to say? You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously, one of the great ones is Denise Richards as Christmas Jones in The Nuclear Physicist in the James Bond movie. That's great. And I don't like recently. These are both TV shows, but there's that show Sneaky Pete where Giovanni Ribisi plays a con man, and I'm like, nothing about this guy inspires confidence in me. Like, I will not believe a word he says. He seems like he has one foot out the door the whole time.
Yeah, you're playing the subtext there as text.
Yeah, and then there's that show that I actually ended up liking a lot that on HBO, Run, with Merritt Weaver and Domhnall Gleeson, where Domhnall Gleeson plays a motivational speaker, and there's nothing about him that makes me think that he can. Like, that people would listen to what he has to say and follow along.
I have two I'll mention. One of them, there are a lot of old movies where there is a bad piece of casting. But looking at Flophouse movies, I would say that Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, they really, miscast those leads quite a bit when they got... It was like they were like, you two, play against type as much as possible. It's going to be great. And they just kind of disappear into the movie around them because they can't really carry it. But I would say that the movie The Post, the riveting tale of a newspaper that is reporting on something else another newspaper is doing. The story is so exciting that the final verdict by the judge is delivered via somebody hearing it over the phone and then repeating it to their office mates. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with the movie, but Tom Hanks, I felt like, was kind of on autopilot, and next to him you had Bob Odenkirk doing, I thought, a really good performance as in that kind of second tier of roles in it, and I would have loved to have seen Bob Odenkirk play the Tom Hanks role, because I feel like he would have worked harder at it, whereas Tom Hanks was just kind of like, I'm Tom Hanks, I'm just doing a Tom Hanks thing, come on everybody, it's me, Tom Hanks, and I love Tom Hanks, he's great, but sometimes Tom Hanks... You got to do more than just be Tom Hanks. Like, maybe be the captain of a World War II naval ship. I haven't seen it yet. Is it any good?
Not that I heard. Hallie, do you have anything at all?
Yeah. I would say, I don't know if you guys are... Well, I would say just off the Tom Hanks thing, if we're talking Da Vinci Code, like the Tom Hanks, Audrey Tautou, whatever, coupling was infamously bad. But... my real beef. Well, I actually had a lot of ideas in this. The first one that came to mind was Julia Roberts and Mary Riley. Did you guys ever see that movie?
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean Julia Roberts and Mary Riley?
I had a big crush on John Malkovich when I was young, so I saw all his movies. And
that is a sentence. That is a sentence that is very Hallie.
There were bad.
That's a very
casting.
Hallie Haglund thing to say.
And yet he was poorly cast in a lot of things because he's, can't do He's not great at accents or. I think of Mice and Men was a stretch for him. But in Mary Riley, I think Julia Roberts was the real problem. She could not nail the Irish accent she was trying to pull off. And it just wasn't her genre. It's kind of like Emilia Clarke being cast in all these super serious roles. We want a joyful Julia Roberts,
Do you think John Malkovich did Of Mice and Men because Tom Noonan wasn't around and they just grabbed the nearest other guy that was kind of like Tom Noonan?
Yeah.
Probably when huge superstar Tom Noonan dropped out of the role, they had to scramble, and all they could get was John Malkovich.
I just want to say that with what Hallie was saying, the miscasting thing, often it just goes to show you that I don't want to seem like we're down on actors because I think it kind of proves that oftentimes actors are so at the mercy of what they're given. I mean, there's some people who obviously transcend every time, but it is so hard to do that you see people who have not impressed you for years, and then they turn out oh no, you're fantastic at this, and it's because they got the opportunity to show it.
Well, I think it's not necessarily. I mean, that's one way to put it is what they're given, but I think it also goes to show that actors are not. To be an actor and even a great actor is not this myth of, well, he can play anything or she can play anything.
Yeah.
It's John Malkovich, I think, for a while, that was he's a great actor. The guy can do anything. When really he's great, but he has a certain type of character he can play, and it's like that with. I feel like there's every big star at a certain point. They get to that point where it's just like, I'm going to play it all, or they say, well, we just need a big name, let's throw them in, and it is not the right thing for them to do.
Yeah.
You know.
But I also think that the problem is like there's this conflation of like good actor with intensity, which I actually, despite my earlier flame for John Malkovich, upon revisiting some old Mary Riley scenes, I was like, oh yeah, like maybe John Malkovich actually kind of sucks and he's just really intense. Because one person who I was thinking about, who I was like, is always miscast except for in Billions, which is a totally ridiculous show, is Paul Giamatti. I always think he's bad, and I'm always like, I don't understand why he's the most famous, you know, like such a respected actor, because all he is like intensity. He's not like. Did I watch John Adams? Is that what you're gonna ask?
No, I was gonna say, did you ever see Win Win?
Oh no.
He's still playing. It's still a serious movie, but he's much lighter in it. And I think you're exactly right. It's like there's like you look at John Malkovich and you look at his performance in being John Malkovich, and he's lightly playing an intense character in that, and it's so much better than in the movies where he's like blah 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 blah, you know, like where he's barking and things like that. Like that one where he played a Dog Malkovich, where he's just barking.
I have to say that I cannot.
So I agree with Hallie.
I cannot let go of this joke that was killed by Elliot mentioning being John Malkovich. I was going to say that, like, when Hallie was like, I don't know whether John Malkovich is good or bad. I was going to be like, well, then come with me through this flesh tube, and we'll go on a trip to his brain to discover once and for all what's the deal with John Malkovich. Everybody, come on board to the flesh tube. I'm continuing to talk because you're also nonplussed by me going back and rescuing that joke that should have just died.
It is a little bit like in Blue Velvet, him going to rescue the hostage, and the hostage is dead already.
Yeah. All right,
so, Hallie, what else? The other ones you got? Hallie, did you have any other ones?
Oh, here was my thing. Is I also think that Michelle Williams is someone who's all about intensity and gets so much praise for being super intense, but like often stands out in not a good way in her casting, even though I know she's like very highly critically acclaimed. And then I Googled it and I saw that Paul Giamatti and Michelle Williams were in a movie together about some hawk, and I was like, I gotta see this, because this is the problem. Like, this is probably the movie I'd see, or I'd say was like worst cast, but I couldn't say because I didn't see it.
Was that the Hawk is Dying, that one?
It's Lady Hawk.
That was Lady Hawk?
No, it's like
Hudson Lady
Hawk
Hawk?
died or something.
I love that you went so far down this like rabbit hole of your least favorite actors that you're like connecting Red Yarn over to this Hawk movie, and you're like, I gotta see this. I gotta track this down.
The thing is, I actually like Michelle Williams, but I guess I don't really like her as an actress. I like her, the idea
as
of
an
her,
icon?
but I never like watching her and stuff.
What about
Somebody's
like
never
Fosse
seen
Verdon?
Wendy and Lucy. What?
I never saw
What about
Fosse
Fosse
Verdon.
Verdon?
I never saw that. The Hawk
Actually-
is Dying is the name of the movie I'm talking about.
Actually, I know exactly. In Fosse Verdon, she's very good in it, but I had that same kind of issue where she's playing Gwen Verdon and she doesn't have the like spark that Gwen Verdon has when you see like tape of her performance. And it was just like there were times when I was like, it was like, come on, Michelle. Like, I'm sure there were moments when Verdon wasn't living all of her past traumas at the same moment in her mind, you know. But I guess that's kind of what the show is all about.
Hey, there's another letter. Let's do it fast. Robert, last name withheld.
Wait,
says,
are there any more after this one?
No, that's it.
So you're saying this is the last letter?
Yeah.
Because last letter, I asked you a question. The very next day, you answered my question. Thank you for answering my question. And first, because you read my question. Last letter, this is that letter. After this letter, there are no more letters. In the alphabet, it would be Z, because that's literally the last letter. This letter, you'd say it's the last, and you'd be right.
I guess that's the sad part.
Because it is the last. When this letter is passed, there won't be any more letters.
Okay, that's enough of that. Wait, I put my phone down, which had the letter.
Also, kind of highlighting what I don't like about the song Last Christmas.
So, Robert,
although the music video of Last Christmas is fucking incredible, and you should just watch that for 2.5 hours.
Tells a full story. Robert Last Name Withheld writes, when I was in college, I took a class when we were presented with the question of if a piece of media had ever changed our outlook on life. A trans man in my class responded by saying that Pinocchio made him feel like he belonged because he also was sure he was a real boy, which was such a profound answer that it blew my mind. My question is, has someone ever given an opinion on something that has profoundly changed how you thought of a piece of media? Sincerely, Robert Last Name Withheld. There's a lot of pondering going on. It's a pretty deep question.
I found it very personal. I found this like uncomfortably personal. That not to say that it shouldn't be asked, but I felt every answer I came up with, I was like, I'm not sure I want to share that with people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Not with these three knuckleheads.
I definitely feel like as I get older and as culture gets hopefully more wider and inclusive, there are definitely things that I would overlook in movies in the past that I'm having trouble overlooking now. I've been having a real crisis of the soul over the Japanese tourist character in Gremlins 2 the past couple weeks as I've thought more and more about that.
You bring it up a couple times.
I know, it's really been haunting me because it's a movie I've been so unequivocally in favor of, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, I'm not okay with that part of it. But also, like, there's just, I can't pinpoint it, but there are a number of times that movies that I have dismissed, I'll hear somebody talk about what it means to them, and I'm like, okay, that's something that I can no longer dismiss that movie because I know it had that effect on you. And I wish I had a specific one in mind, but it's a really great feeling because it's like, it reminds me of the potential of this art form and how there's something for everybody in the world of movies or media or whatever, and just because something doesn't hit me one way doesn't mean it's not incredibly valuable because it might hit somebody else in a way that I wouldn't have recognized before. So I wholeheartedly approve of this way of thinking, but I have no examples. I'm done. I yield the remainder of my time.
Fuck you.
Somebody's been watching a lot of community board meetings.
This is less like an external opinion and more like a conglomeration of like learning from people over time and like hopefully becoming more thoughtful over time. Is that like sometimes movies I feel like just change in my interpretation because of things that I've like felt in between. And one that struck me recently is I saw After Hours again, I think last year, the Scorsese movie starring Griffin Dunne, the black comedy. And it was like, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, oh, this guy is just sort of being bedeviled by the city and by like bad luck, and he's being overly punished, et cetera, et cetera. And then like seeing it again this year, I was kind of like, no, this is kind of like a sly critique of like, this guy presents himself as being nice and at the victim of the world, but he is perpetrating a lot of his own like downfall, and he is like the movie is sort of like on the surface like shows him being kind of bedeviled by a series of women, but if he showed any sort of like patience or forbearance in the movie or willingness to like not do what was expedient to save himself, like everything would have gone a lot better for him. And so it was just interesting to feel like I think there was a deeper meaning that was always there that I just wasn't attuned to.
There's that moment in After Hours where he takes out his only $20 bill and puts it in the door handle or ashtray of the taxi cab door, and then it flies away in wind. And I was like, well, why'd you do that, stupid?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's entirely your fault, and it's something nobody would do. Come on, man.
I mean, Stu, you don't have to have anything if you're having trouble with
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that popped in my head was when I was having a conversation with somebody about furry culture, and they mentioned how influential the scene in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie where Raphael is in the bathtub, and I'm like, you know what? That scene is pretty hot. I get it.
Moving on to...
Wait, I didn't answer.
Oh, wait, you didn't? Oh, sorry. I thought you said everything was too personal.
I mean, no, it was personal, but I have an answer.
Yeah, I just laid my soul bare.
Sorry.
No, yeah, I mean, I hope it's okay to include things that we ourselves as people in media have worked on. But I feel like I don't know, I worked on this show Problem Areas for 2 years, and our second season was all about education, and we sort of had this theme of, our goal with the show was to like show approaches that were trying to like change a fraught system. And with education, a lot of it was focused on inequality, and a lot specifically like racial inequality. And our last episode was like very specifically about like segregated schools, and like we had talked a lot about like, we should, because it was like really heavily focused on these documentary portions we had, and we had talked about like, do we find a place where they've done districting where that creates very integrated schools, or do we where like housing is really integrated, and so schooling would also be integrated, or the point is like we just like talked around a lot of ideas about like how do you integrate schools. And as we were putting the footage that we had gathered together, there was like a quote from someone, a clip from someone that we wound up using that like Wyatt Cenac and I, like when we were editing, sort of went back and forth about. And I remember like arguing for time, like, we really need to like comment on this clip. It sort of takes us out of the rhythm of something. But it was this person saying like, in integrated schools for white students, it like is important because it dispels the idea that there's something inherently smarter or better about white people when you're like in a classroom with people of all races. But for black people, it's kind of essential. For black and brown people, it's essential because like your success in schools is like inextricably tied to like the resources that you get when you're in a classroom with white kids. And I remember Wyatt being like, we have to comment about this because it's so upsetting to hear something like that, and think about like the only way that black and brown people can have success in schools is if they're in a classroom with white people, because the only way that you can access resources is when it's tied to the white people that you're associated with. And it was just like something that sort of like upended the way that I had thought about everything that we had talked about before, and how we had sort of been talking about like these ways that you can change public schools that were just all such small changes, and not addressing like, if you don't think about the humanity of people, then like it doesn't really matter what you change within the system. And maybe that is like only illuminating my own ignorance, but it was like a real like moment of like me understanding something that like I didn't feel like I had understood before, or like taken in.
That's I was just going to say that's such a good answer that I feel bad returning to our usual nonsense. But Elliot, what were you going to say?
We'll just edit out our responses.
No. No. I'm not saying you can't respond. I'm just expressing.
Oh no, I just want to tell Hallie she was wrong, and that actually, no, I'm just kidding. Come on. It just goes to show that when you're dealing with any sort of media, you have to be not open-minded is the wrong word, but you can't rest on your assumptions about anything, because one, you may miss something, but also like there's a real worth to challenging and analyzing any piece of media that you come across, and you'll get more out of it that way. I mean, whether at work or play, than if you just kind of lay back and let the media wash over you and then react to it on a just a sensory level. There's definitely movies that I've watched where I'm like, that's fine, and then I take a couple minutes to think about it, and I may not like the movie as much, or I may have more complicated feelings about it, but I get a certain amount of like pleasure and satisfaction from knowing that I'm engaging with it at a deeper level than just okay, take it or leave it, whatever, that's okay, moving on, like that kind of thing. And I don't know that I necessarily added anything to Hallie's answer, but I certainly said something, in which case...
And that's the important
and you
part.
said the last thing.
It certainly helped me put my stamp on everybody's responses, and therefore I'm now the author and owner of that segment. So good job, Elliot. Thank you.
Oh, God. You know what happens next, guys?
What's that?
The next part is where we recommend movies that you could watch, let's say, maybe in addition to Last Christmas, which...
Or if you don't want to... You don't have to watch Last Christmas.
you don't have to,
I'm
just
not
'cause we
I'm not
talked
gonna
about
tell
it.
you don't watch it. I'm just saying you don't have to watch it.
Yeah. You know, you make the call on this one.
I mean,
why,
if
why
I was
do we have to
reviewing,
work
I'd
on
be
you?
like...
Why do we have to tell you all the time?
I'd be like, run, don't walk to Last Christmas if Last Christmas is the type of movie you enjoy watching.
Yeah. That's good. So, movie recommendations. I'm just seeing whether I recommended something before, so I'm sorry for doing that on
You
air.
probably recommended something before.
And you've recommended lots of things, I think, unless those are implanted memories from the Weapon X program.
Name one thing that I...
Joysticks? I think you recommended joysticks once.
Yeah, well, I've got a similar recommendation to joysticks now, and that is...
Moving violations.
That is, hey, I don't know whether it qualifies as a recommendation if it's a movie that we've actually done for the podcast before. I don't know what the rules are on that. I looked at the rule book. I don't think there is a rule against it, but... guys,
the only rule in the Flophouse rulebook says no dogs can play major sports.
Wow, that's weird. So
did you check the appendices? It might list the rule there in the appendix.
Well, I'm breaking the rule if it exists. I don't know if you guys heard this. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't like it. I'm gonna say I'm not a big fan. Don't care for it. Making me feel bad. So sometimes when you feel bad, you just have to watch Tango and Cash. So my recommendation this week is Tango and Cash with Kurt Russell and Sylvester Sly Stallone. Tango and Cash.
Oh, okay. Do you need to qualify that recommendation at all?
No. Well, I mean, it's a dumb movie. How about that for a qualification? But it's fun.
Jack Palance is in it.
Jack Palance is great. Great to see him. Love it.
So, Dan, would you, so you didn't like that I was trying to brand this as the Dan-demic? I was really trying to make this kind of like Dan's Pandemic.
I didn't care for, the name, the damage to my brand is what I was worried about.
Did you, so you didn't like those radio ads that I took out that were like, this year, make it a Dan-demic?
No, didn't. Elliot, do you have a recommendation?
So here's the thing, Dan, and you're mentioning Tango and Cash has really put me in a quandary, and I'll tell you why. No, not because I was going to recommend Tango and Cash. I mean, come on, guys, come on. Because I have been going back and forth for a while now on whether or not to recommend the movie Runaway Train, directed by Andrei Konchalovsky, the same director I probably pronounced his name wrong, who also directed Tango and Cash, mainly because it stars Jon Voight, who is a real problematic individual in that he is a super Trump supporter, says a lot of terrible things, really seems to have gone around the bend. This is no longer the adorable Jon Voight of Baby Geniuses. This is so I've been wanting to, but I watched that movie recently, and it's a really, really it's a really good, intense, super intense movie. And it stars Jon Voight and Eric Roberts, who are both very problematic people in different ways. And but it's kind of like if Tango and Cash was a good movie, it would be Runaway Train, where it's like these two prisoners who escape from prison and get onto a train, not knowing that this train is about to become, wait for it, a runaway train. And I've been torn about whether to recommend it or not, because the main actors I so do not support in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of like an unofficial. That's an unofficial recommendation. Is Runaway Train.
Having your cake and eating it too. All right,
I'm gonna have that cake. I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna throw it up because I feel bad about having it and eating it.
Okay.
So instead, I was inspired by this movie, Last Christmas, a movie, a winter story involving a ghost who helps a young woman. It made me think of a movie called Curse of the Cat People from 1944. This is the somewhat sequel to the movie Cat People, in which they said, the first movie was about a woman who turns into a cat when she gets too kind of aggravated or emotional or turned on. We're going to do a movie about a family where the daughter kind of as either a ghost or an imaginary friend becomes friends with that Catwoman from the first movie and needs her to get her through a very like dysfunctional period in her family life. And so it's a movie that's kind of a strange movie because it's in some ways a ghost movie, but maybe it's not a ghost movie. But it's a very like slightly melodramatic but fairly sensitively done story of the tension between a little girl and the other members of her family, and kind of how she needs to escape into this relationship with a woman who may not exist or may exist to get through it. And so instead, I'll recommend The Curse of the Cat People. But if you're one of those people who can separate your feelings about a real person from their work, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, then you might as well go watch Runaway Train.
Stuart, have you gone? Sorry.
No, Dan, I have not gone. I guess it's my turn.
Wow. I don't know what the anger's about, but...
Oh, now I'm angry. Interesting. Okay.
What?
I'm going to recommend a movie called Swallow. It is a kind of a drama thriller movie with some horror elements. It is about a young woman who is recently married and becomes pregnant. And for all intents and purposes, it seems like she has this perfect life, a beautiful house, a handsome husband who has a good job, but he's never around. And she begins she begins ingesting inanimate objects of increasingly dangerous varieties. And I am assuming the makers of the movie have done some research into Pica. I don't know very much about it, so I don't know how accurate it is. But for me, it was an interesting story about control, and it portrayed addiction in ways that felt very real and scary, and just I don't know. I thought it was pretty compelling. Swallow.
Just to update everyone, Hallie's now in a closet. She appears to be in a closet with some there's some shoes behind her, maybe some bags. Anyway,
so fully half of the people on this podcast right now are recording from closets.
Yep.
Oh wow. Let's
That's some fast math, Elliot.
Let's get you guys out of there and
I'm a little bit of a mathematician, knowing that 2 is half of 4.
Let's let Hallie recommend her movie so you can both get out of those tiny rooms.
Oh, yeah, I was going to recommend, I don't know if anyone has recommended it before. It seems like it would have been more timely months ago. But has anyone recommended Memories of Murder on this show?
Not in a little while. I think a while back, but not recently.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
please
my
recommend it.
recommendation.
Yeah.
So I recommend, it's a Bong Joon-ho earlier movie by him. It's sort of loosely based on like the first serial killer in South Korea, and it was really fucking good. I didn't know what to expect, but it's like very interesting. It's sort of about this like moment in Korea where they're transitioning from like an older society to a more modernized society, and that's reflected in the way they pursue this crime, and it's real fucked up and real interesting. Yeah.
Hallie, I gotta say, your audio got like it's got this like much more intimate quality now that you're in the closet in there.
Now that I'm in the closet?
Yeah.
Well.
And if anyone's wondering if Memories of Murder has Song Kang-ho in it, you better believe it does.
He's great. What a star, that guy.
Okay, guys, we've tortured you all long enough. Let's sign off for this.
Do you mean you've tortured us or the listeners?
I was thinking about you initially, but then I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave the ambiguity because it applies equally to all participants. But
nice. It could be a ghost or a metaphor.
Yeah.
That's up to you to decide.
Thanks to all who donated in this past Max Fun Drive, which just came to a close recently. Thank you to our network, Maximum Fun, for providing us with support. All that stuff. Go check out the other podcasts there. Hallie, is there anything that you want to plug or anything you want to say? Or thank you for coming, first of all. Thank you for being on the show.
I'm doing this very intense performance. The only thing I have on my schedule is the Boy Next Door.
All right, well, we'll promote The Boy Next Door. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for listening. For the Flophouse, I've been Dan McCoy.
I've been Stuart Wellington.
I'm Elliot Kalin.
And I've been Hallie Haglund.
Bye, everyone.
Very intense. It was so intense.
Bye. David Lee Roth, yes.
He'd
David
do a lot
Lee
of
Roth.
scatting too. He'd be like,
Did I tell you about the time I saw kind of recently? So kind of recently, I saw a
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.